Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room. I'm joined today by Kev and Kings. If you're new around here, make sure to click like and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitter, head over to YouTube so you can get involved with the comments. If you're on YouTube, get involved, ask us questions, give us your thoughts on the topics that we're going to whip. Great start. Make sure you get involved with the comments so that you can give us your thoughts on everything that we're going to be discussing today, because there's a good few things we've got to get through. Obviously, we've got to discuss briefly the Bayer Leverkusen domination that we saw yesterday. We've got Andrew Robertson contract talks apparently have started, and Tchouameni from Real Madrid is up for sale, but a price tag has officially been revealed, and apparently we're talking to the entourage of the player, so we're going to look in details on that. Well, I'll go to you, Kev, first. How are you doing? All good?
All good, Lee. All good. Top of 2 leagues. Haven't played anyone yet. So, yeah, all good, mate. You?
Mate, I'm literally the exact same. Two leagues on top of. Never been able to say that before, but yeah, we're doing really, really good at the minute, to be honest. That result yesterday put me in a very good mood, so all happy about that. Kings, you, man?
Well, to be fair, I am exactly the same. It's like it's unusual because this new format. You could be top of the league now instead of like these mini groups and stuff like that, and to be top of the Premier League as well. It's happy days at the moment, isn't it? All good here.
No complaints to be had, really. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into some, don't worry, because we've got Tchouameni to talk about. Jay Welch says, Lou with Kings and Kev twins. That's true, actually, yeah. It's like a sort of...
I got longer hair today, so I'm not short as Kev like usual.
Kings is definitely better looking, so there you
go. Mine needs going. It's a bit ratty at the minute. I might just do what you've done. I might just shave it all off soon, to be honest. But yeah, we're going to get into it because there's plenty to talk about. Now, I'm going to touch briefly on the Leverkusen game because obviously Charlie covered it yesterday. It was on the US show last night at 2 a.m. So there's not a huge amount that I think a lot of people can say. But that doesn't mean we're going to not give it a go, because there is stuff to discuss from that will lead into current topics, including one Andrew Robertson, who we'll get to shortly. But Kev, obviously you were at the match yesterday. Now, one thing that I'm really curious about, and I'm going to touch on it later on my channel, is in that first half, everything felt so subdued. The fact that I could hear fireworks in the background of a live football match, as opposed to the actual fans in the ground, said a lot about where we were in that match. But that second half was ridiculous from what I could hear and from what I could see. Was there a noticeable shift with regards to that second half in terms of atmosphere, or did you just sort of did you not notice anything outright? It just seemed sort of natural.
For me, that's the way the crowd should be. It shouldn't be this, we have to sing so many songs before half time. We have to do this, we have to do that. One thing that I do miss is that we don't have a name, we don't have a song for all the players. So when that while they're warming up is something that I'd like to bring back. If you're asking me for, what I would like. I think what you've seen over the last 2 games is literally the way the fans and the spectators should be reacting. In both games, we've reacted in a way that you'd expect us to, because we were under the cosh. Brighton played very well in that first half and made us look very, very poor, and made us prayed for the halftime whistle, because we couldn't put a pass together. We didn't play to anywhere near the ability that we could, and we gave opportunities away that Brighton thankfully didn't take. So when you put that into context, and then you put it into the second half, we knew we were under the cosh. I think why everyone says it's hard. I do think it personally, it's hard the way we play now to generate an energy to start it off, because our game is very slow and lethargic at times, and it's hard to build an energy, and that's just being and that's natural, I think. But when we're under the caution, when we're needed, we'll come out. Now, Europe will always come out for the big games, and we always do. And last night was another chance. We were playing a very good quality side, and with that, although they didn't have many opportunities, we knew we needed to to sing our hearts out. It's been difficult over the last season because I think having half the ground empty because of structural work that was getting done, that's kind of added into the actual atmosphere talk that we have. But for me, if you're asking me, naturally is how it should be. It shouldn't be forced. We don't have speakers.
I agree.
We don't have anyone getting us geared up to start anything. We do it ourselves, and we do it as and when the team are prompted and need us to, and we provide that 12th man. That's what we are. Saturday, don't get me wrong, there's times where we could do it earlier, but it's hard the way we're playing to. And I'm not using that as an excuse. I just think that's just a given at the minute with us. But I don't get into all this discourse of, oh well, this is, well, it's not like it used to be. It is. It's just that it's different, and we're reacting to the way the teams are playing at the minute. It's great to do it every game, and it would be boss if we could do that. But I don't want it forced. It needs to be as and when we need to, and Brighton.
That's the thing.
And
yeah, it'll lose it
exactly.
If you're essentially just, I mean, carry on in a moment, but like I feel like if you are just singing because it's 5 minutes now, we've got to sing the Luis Diaz song. Oh, it's 7 minutes, we've got to sing the Van Dijk song. At that point, it becomes forced and meaningless. There's no reason to it. It's the point of the atmosphere is to motivate and to give energy at times when you desperately need it, not because it's predetermined that, well, we're 10 minutes in, time to start singing this song. Otherwise, it just becomes a meaningless gesture. Like, we give Chelsea grief because we often call them a plastic club, handing out flags to fans because no one's bringing in that sort of atmosphere and environment. If you start just chanting, it loses all meaning if there's no motivation behind it, just other than it's time to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get me wrong. There are going to be games where the crowd are going to be up for it. Last night was one of them. An ex-player coming back with his old club, so I had an extra meaning to it. Those games will always have that. The rivalry between Everton will always have that. The rivalry with Manchester United will also provide that. And if we're in a Premier League challenge with City when we play them at home, those games will do. Don't get me wrong. There are going to be games where it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? There are games where we do struggle, and I do get that. But at the same time, it should not be forced. One thing I would say is that I think any of the day trippers who do not sing should be given a songbook or of something from somewhere to know all the names or to know all the songs, because some of them don't even know You Never Walk Alone. So and I feel as though we're seeing as something like a museum piece. Oh, wait until they start singing You Never Walk Alone. And you know what I mean? It shouldn't be like that. If you're at the ground, you're there to react, and you react to the way you feel it should be. And we did that on Saturday, and we did it last night. And I think more should be doing it. And if you're not singing, that's also fine. But some people don't like to sing. But that doesn't mean to say they don't know the words to all the bloody songs. You know what I mean? And especially the main one that we do sing at the start and at the end of the game. But it shouldn't be a flagship for us of, oh, look, this is what they're doing. So for me, I'm sick of hearing all this. Oh, well, or like this. We create our own atmosphere, and the last two games have shown that we do that as and when we need it. And it's probably the first time on the slot he's actually heard us quite as loud as what we have, and hopefully that continues. And and the more youngsters that go to the game as well, that will influence more people to start singing as well. So there's more from the club that could be done as well around it as well. So, but no, rant over.
No, it's fine. Look, because it is something that is touched on, and Kings, like I've said, and like a lot of people have said, actually, to be fair, it maybe at some points isn't as vibrant as it once was, but it'd be great to go 100% every single match 2-3 times a week sometimes, but it does become a forced thing. And that Leverkusen match, and even the Brighton match, as we touched on earlier, like Fabian Herzler touched about how the atmosphere changed the game. Alonso, you could see him literally on the side of the pitch trying to calm down the Leverkusen players because you could see that it was getting to them. Like that, like going together with the way that we're playing at the moment, we're justified to be top of these two leagues, but does this seem like just a hot flash in the pan? A bit of a big question, or does this seem like something that you can see that Slot's implemented the style really well, or do you think this is just a temporary sort of form thing?
Well, I'll come back to that last bit. I do want to pick up, both of you said things that are quite correct. Kev said, obviously, we've changed style. And people got so used to Klopp and, as they used to call it, rock and roll football, 100 mile an hour. So it was easy to get excitable and start singing, etc. And we do play a different game now with Slot. And I have no issue with how we play because he's doing something right, obviously, and I think the difference is, I suppose, that when the team aren't playing well, like first half against Brighton yesterday, when it seemed to nullify the first half, it was kind of like, they were trying, we were trying, wasn't quite working as such. And once we come out second half, like I say, it's no good being forced, because once you do that, it loses its, the backing of the team. You're just doing it because you think you should, as you said. So I can agree with both, to be honest. And the second half completely changed. The team were different. The atmosphere was so much different. And I think from that, then, that really made it a bit more of the old kind of Anfield cauldron, put the other opposition players under a bit of stress, thinking, hang on a minute here, this is what they say is the famous Anfield noise around. And I think it did get to him. And it proved in the end, obviously such a good win. And yet, first half, I wouldn't have thought that was going to happen. It was like, I'd have took a 1-0 and just been like, let's get it over and done with, playing like that. Second half, it was like, you know what, we could have had 6 probably, just because it seems to just free flow all of a sudden. And it's like, and when Slot's got a slower build-up, it is hard for people to sit there and go, well, start singing now, because it's exciting, because it might not be. It might be just be passing it around the defence and the goalie. And it's like, sometimes maybe that's when they need you, to encourage you to go forward, the players, kind of thing. But forcing it would be the wrong way, So it's got to be a natural thing that people all of a sudden see you going forward or have a chance and then think, right, go into song now because we've just had a chance. Let's spur them on to try and have another one, etc. That's what works the best, I feel. As for Slot, is it a flash in the pan? Or I don't think it is, to be honest. I was really concerned in the summer. I'd never heard of him. Now, I've said this many times on the show. I follow Liverpool. I don't really follow foreign football. So when they brought his name up, I was like, I've never heard of the guy. But I'm going to be totally honest. I hadn't heard of Jurgen Klopp when he first came. I was just like, because I don't follow that kind of football. So he come in and I was a bit like, right, let's, if Klopp's on the farewell on the pitch and he's saying, right, back this manager, it's like, well, I'll back the manager then, whoever he is, because that's what we need to do. And to be fair to him, he's come in, I suppose, a little bit under the radar, because everybody knew there was going to be pressure on him to follow in Klopp's footsteps. And we all know it's happened when, obviously, Dalglish retired years ago. Souness come in, changed it completely, and for 20 years, it wasn't worth anything. Now, I know Souness has come out since and said, I changed it around too quick. So I'm hoping that managers nowadays have learned. Slot knew coming into this one that he had a massive squad of talent. There wasn't many that he's going to say, I don't want you, I don't want you. Most of them were like, right, these are top players. There's World Cup winners in there. They've won the Champions League together, the Premier League. So he knew he had experienced top players. And I think he's done very well to come in, implement his style slowly, and we're all seeing it on the pitch. But it's working, to be fair. It might not be the most fancy football we've ever seen at times, but it's effective. And it's like, well, I know years ago we used to take the mick out of Arsenal fans, 1-0 to the Arsenal, but all them 1-0s added up to a league title in the end. So it's like, well, I'd take 1-0 every game.
Well, look at Mourinho in the 04-05 season, where they conceded 15 goals and won every game essentially 1-0. Like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, you want your team to be successful. So if you win every game 1-0, it's like, okay, then that's great. You've done your job. Everybody would like a 5-0 thrashing of every other team, because that's exciting. That's what, especially when it's United or Everton or, the bigger game, City. But it doesn't matter as long as you get the 3 points. We'd love seeing nice football, and I got to say with Slot, he starts off slow at the back, and then bang, it seems to be at the front. It's in the goals, it's done, and it's like, so that's where the explosion is, and I do like that because he's so slow pace at the back, passing it out from Kelleher to Van Dijk and back to Konate, etc. And all of a sudden, bang! Before you know it, it's in the area and it's a goal. And I think that's really good, enjoyable football. I'm quite enjoying watching it, to be honest. I think he's doing really well. For a flash in the pan, if that's what he is, he's doing really well because he's top of 2 leagues, have we said? I'm enjoying the ride so far. He seems to have picked up the mantle and thought, right, let's go with it and see.
Well, I'm doing a video on my channel where it's like 5 things that we learned from the match, and one big thing that I think is noticeable is and this is more sort of permeated towards last season because last season was a bit of a write-off towards the end in some regards, but because Klopp wanted his players to press so intensely from the front all the way to the back, when we did win the ball back, only Salah was the only player forward, and we saw against Man United in the league where we ended up in that 2-2 draw. It's because there was nothing going forward. There was no pass on. People were missing their chances. Whereas with Slot, it's very calculated, and it's very much the second we win the ball back, you all need to be in these positions ready to go. And we saw that yesterday with Diaz. We saw that yesterday with Gakpo. Even towards the end, we were 4-0 up, and we were in like a 5-on-2 situation, bar Nunez doing what he does best. But it's very calculated, and it's very exciting to watch in a different regard. And I think it's taken time to adapt to it, but we are seeing the fruits of it. And if it does mean that at points we are going to have to play this slow tempo of football, and we're not going to be able to sing every second of every match, I'm absolutely fine with it. It doesn't have to be the most electric football, but like you said perfectly, if it's getting results, I'll take being a Chelsea 04-05 season over a Klopp finished second, 1 point behind the champions. Oh no, sorry, bad example. Like a Brendan Rodgers, you score 3, we'll score 4 any day of the week. So that's my 2 pence on it. If anyone cares, but
I think with Klopp, what it was, we run forward and we battered them into submission. We kind of like broke through because it was fast attacking football. With Slot, it's almost like there's a big dam in front of you, and he's just poking and prodding until he finds the crack in that dam, and then boom, before you know it, he's through, and the players are through, and then it works. So it's more of a slow build up, yes, but once we find that weak spot, we kind of exploit it. Then it's like 2 goals quite quickly against Brighton. We found a weak spot, and before they had a chance to recover, we found it again and straight in. And I think once he kind of pokes and prods enough, and they go, right, we're in, go for it, and they go for the jugular. Then
it's a bit like
that's what the best teams do.
Yeah. It's very measured. It's very calculated. We're already looking 3-4 moves ahead. So the analogy would be, before they know they've lost the Queen and the Bishop, as quickly as Brighton did, and before they can do anything. So it's great to watch, but it is very measured and more calculated than what we're used to, and it's adapting to that, and I think we're adapting well to it. I think it's surprised a lot of us how calculated we have been and how ruthless we have been, and how less of goals we're conceding. Even last night against the very good Bayer Leverkusen side, that very rarely was were we in any kind of trouble. I think we were more in trouble down the wings than what we would usually be. But with them not playing with the 9, it kind of benefited because there was no they weren't hitting anyone, if you know what I mean. They were always looking for body faces down the sides. But no, very calculated, very chess-minded. Try and go three moves ahead and then hit them. So great.
What I tell you, what surprised me is the fact that we've got this. I know I've said we've got a top squad, and we have, and that's what he inherited. He was very lucky. There's not really any bad apples in there that you think, right, get them out, definitely. But I'm surprised he's doing it without really tinkering with it at all. It's the same players that Klopp had, and yet he's created a completely different way of playing with the same group. If he'd have brought in 4 players in the summer, say Tchouameni and a few others, you'd go, yeah, it's him ticking the midfield over now instead, and we couldn't have done that with Gravenberch and etc. But he's not. He's got the same players, and yet he's got them playing a completely different way, and they actually look quite settled now. Now they've learned, their positions and how they're doing it. They look really good doing it. So hopefully that's going to continue.
It's a good thing as well in the sense of, because I think coming into this summer or into this season even, the normal conversation you'd have with people is, well, we need a number 6, we need a deep line midfielder, and we still do. But after this season started, I'm looking at different parts of the pitch and thinking, well, actually, the number 6 is probably fallen down my list of priorities at the moment. And it's like the season after the season we won the league, even the 1920 season, we went into that sign and Sepp van den Berg, Harvey Elliott, and Adrian didn't make any major adjustments, went on and won the league because he had a squad capable of doing it. This is the same situation. And now we've gotten to a point where I'd argue maybe we need another centre back, maybe we need another left back. And that's the one that we're going to touch on because, like Kev said before, we need to be looking 2-3 steps ahead. And one thing that the club is looking at doing in that regard is Andrew Robertson is apparently in contract negotiations. His contract's set to expire in 2026. And apparently the club don't want to end up in a similar situation which we see now with Salah and Van Dijk and Trent, which is very telling all on its own, because we're going to go into detail on all this, because to me, that's saying that the club see a future with Robertson beyond 2026, because I think when it comes around to the time of his contract expiring, he's going to be in his 30s. I am of the belief, I adore Robertson. He's one of my favourite ever Liverpool players. John Arne Riise is my all-time favourite. I love left-backs. I love defenders who venture forward. But Robertson is a position on the pitch where I do think we should start future-proofing. I don't think Tsimikas is quite to the level we need him to be. But by this, it says that the club sees a future still with Andrew Robertson, despite his minutes coming down. And Kev, I mean, we've seen a lot recently that Robbo is it's very rare that he does a full 90 at the moment. He's either subbed off or subbed on. And are you surprised that this is happening? Or, when we've got players like Trent, Van Dijk and Salah whose contracts are running out, who are incredibly vital to the squad, not saying Robertson isn't, but, he's someone who you could see winding down the contract a bit and then letting him make his decision of what to do. So are you surprised that this is happening at the moment?
For me, yeah. And it's not due to the player. Well, it is. It's due to his performances and how much of a cliff he's fallen off. I know he's had injuries, but he's not the player. I haven't seen a game this season where he reminds me of any 2-3 years ago. I just think he's. I don't know. I can't actually put me actual thing on it, but I do think I agree with you. The number 6 is falling down. I think the weakness for me is very much on that left hand side, and especially at left back for me. I just think that's because one is old and is coming to the end of his career. The other one, I have to say, he has played well in the last 2 games he's played. I will give him that, and he has done well. But I don't think he is a defensive. He doesn't have a defensive mindset. He's not quick enough for me. I think it's surprising that teams with pace don't go down that side as well when he actually plays. So Mitoma, I would have started against Tsimikas on Saturday. Robbo for me, I don't know. I always it's sad how it's coming to. I think it was coming to an end for him, and his performances I don't think deserve him to have an extended contract after 26. I thought we'd let him go, and we try and find a new alternative. That means that we then sell Tsimikas. Then is that a better way of bringing someone else in, and you have someone with the experience and the know-how of Robbo who can come on for the last 10-20 minutes and do the game management bit, and you have the legs in a young person coming in who can actually do the job for you. I don't know. I'm surprised a little bit at it. I'm not surprised shockingly, but for me, I don't know. I think he will get. We will extend it. I'm not going to be too disagreement or kicking off at that he's being extended. Just kind of disappointed that we're the way it's come about. It's been given where performances have been lacking for me, and that's the only reason why I wouldn't extend, because his performances have dipped, and as you say, his minutes have got littler and littler by every game that he's played so far. It's a shame, really, but that's where I am with it. On the fence, happy to give him an extension. Happy if he goes in 26. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, same thing to you. Like, what do you make of the Robertson situation at the moment?
Well, I've got to say, I think that earlier Jay Welch said we're like twins. We think alike, because basically what he's just said is what I agree with. That sounds a bit of a cop-out, but I am surprised, to be honest, because he was 30 in March. So by the time his next contract ends, at the moment, he's going to be 32. If they said they're giving him an extra year, 33. But as Kev said, his performances, I don't think, warrant a new contract. And there's been speculation. We were looking at the left side, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're going to extend this contract. And the only way I can see this maybe working is if they get somebody who's, early 20s, who's really highly thought of, and they think, right, we can develop them. And yes, they can learn from Andrew Robertson, because his attitude, and he's been there and done it with the club now, his attitude's fantastic. His ability is changing as he's getting older. Now, I will put a caveat on that, saying he's doing better than me. I can't run down the left-hand side, but, so he's got talent, and he's still got something to offer. But I think if they bring somebody younger in, they can learn from him, and then he can come on, like we say, and do a little bit of game management here and there while they're learning. That's the only reason I can think, while they say keep him around. And, Slot must be having some input in this after watching him play now. He's got an idea of who he likes and what he wants. So I just feel that, I would see how this season goes first, and then, okay, he's in the last year of his deal. But I'm going to be awful and sounding this, but he's not Salah, Van Dijk or Trent. If you're going to offer him a deal at the end of the season, he's probably going to say, yes, thanks very much, I'll take it. There won't be much hassle, I don't think. So I don't see why they're talking about it now. It's like, get to the end of the season, let's let it settle and see where we are with it all, and see maybe if we bring somebody else in, and then talk about a new deal. But at the moment, I just think he's got 18 months left. There's no rush, I don't think. But it's the club ultimately is going to choose, isn't it? So,
Luke, question to you: Do you think this coming about with Robertson is a way to say to the likes of those three of, well, look, we're looking to keep the stability at the club, and then that is to try and persuade them with the contract? Or do you think it's just we're going out to sign, to make him sign a new contract regardless of that? Or do you think there may make a bit of cynicism that the club are trying to provide a bit of stability for those three, to show that we're not going to change it all that much, and the players are still going to be the same? Do you think that? And that goes to yourself, Kings, as well?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I do, to an extent, but at the same time, the big issue we've had in the past is players want to see where the project's going, and I think holding on to someone who the legs are starting to definitely go, like King said, he's going to be 32 at the time of his contract expiring, so you're going to keep him until he's 34, 35. It shows a sort of sign of we're not ready to move on. And while I do think it'd be a nice way of saying to those three, look, we are, we still want to be stable, it can have the adverse effect where they're thinking, well, we want to see new talent come through. We want to see someone who can bring energy to this team and move it forward. Not because you look at Man United when Moyes came in, you had Vidic, Ferdinand, Van Persie, Evra, all in their 30s to mid-30s, and that's why they declined so quick, because they were so resistant to change and moving on from those key players, that when it did come for the new manager to come in, none of them had the energy to match what he wanted, and ultimately it cost them the job. So I can agree to an extent, but with a bit of cynicism, I think it could have an adverse effect as well.
I'll be the fence sitter, and I agree with the pair of you. To be fair, I can see both sides of this. Yes, there is some cynicism with it, and they could look at it both ways. Then players, to be honest, because obviously we know if you have an age inside, then they may not be able to compete continually because their age is catching up with them. Yeah, that is a difficult one for the club, to be honest. So I think there's maybe a little bit of mind games, like Kev says, saying, well, look, we're trying to keep our so-called top players, but if you keep too many of them, then there's no change. People think, well, you didn't win the league last year, technically, or, we're going to move on because there's no ambition. So, yeah, it's a bit of a juggle, really, isn't it?
I think I agreed with what you said earlier on in the sense of you should bring someone in and start phasing Robertson out that little bit more to rest them, but you can't have enough players with good mentality like James Milner was for us, and he was so crucial in that role. There's always been those experienced players. We brought Ian Rush back for that same reason. We brought Robbie Fowler back for that same reason, and it's important to keep him for that, but you do need to future proof. And there's a plethora of left backs in the league that you could, not even in our league, like all over the world, that you could go to. And like Jamie Hughes says, as we know, when the legs start to go, there you go. Fullback nowadays, you're up against some tricky players, and Robertson struggled against Mateus Cunha against Wolves. He struggled against Madueke against Chelsea. He struggled against Saka majorly against Arsenal. And I think the slower he's getting, the harder he's finding it to play against these tricky, fast wingers. And that's when you do need to start considering, okay, there may be other alternatives out there. Maybe we need to start looking elsewhere. And like with that in mind, Kings, like, I mean, I want to ask the question of like who would you want to go for? Is there anyone in the league that you've seen? But is there an in-house solution maybe? Because we saw last season we've got depth at left back in terms of the youth players. So what's the best way to go about this route in that regard?
I think for the rest of this season, they should be looking maybe at the youth. I don't think they're going to buy anyone in January. I think it's going to be next summer if they go all out for somebody. But maybe just have a look at the youth now and say, right, show us your best left back and give them a chance maybe this season. Just 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and graduate like they did with Bradley originally. And, I know we had to bring him in because Trent was injured, so it's slightly different. But just bring a really good reserve or a youth player through and say, right, show us what you can do on the proper stage, with the atmosphere, people shouting and men's football, as we say, and see if they're up to it. And then that gives you time to look from January to the summer. If they're not quite up to it and they're supposed to be our best youth prospect coming through, we can identify somebody abroad or even in the Premier League currently that could come in instead. But I think they should give their own a chance because the problem, I think I seen a stat the other day. I think the Premier League have said out of all the top academies in the Premier League, only 3% ever make it through. Only 3%.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is it's outrageously bad stats, really. 3% of all these kids. So let's just say, I don't know. I mean, not that I wanted to go there, but through a different project, I went to Man City's ground and we had a tour of their training facilities. And we were talking to the coaches there, and they were saying, like all teams now, the amount of different levels and ages, there is hundreds and hundreds of kids coming through these academies. And if only 3% are going to make it, or potentially 3%, that is such bad odds of getting through. And I'm thinking, well, if you're not even going to try and promote somebody from within, why do they bother going to the academies if you're just going to pick somebody else from someone, from abroad or whatever? Give them a chance at least. And then if they come off, it's great. They haven't cost you anything as such. If it doesn't come off, then fair enough. You can say, well, we had a look. And at this point, they need another 12 months, etc. And we're going to go and buy somebody we need now who's ready. But I just feel that at least give them a chance and try and blood them for the rest of the season. Just, a few minutes here and there and get used to it. And then a bit more, etc., as we know. And see if they've got what it takes.
No, I completely agree. Have you got thoughts on this one?
No, I kind of agree with what King said. To be honest, looking at a younger player, if you ask him for me in the league, I've always liked Ainori at Wolves.
You love him. Yeah, absolutely agree.
I've
100%.
every time I've seen him play, especially against us, he is absolutely.
Yeah.
He looks a decent player. You tend to forget we've got an academy as well, and how well we are bringing players through at the minute, and I think this is one of those fruit times where there's abundance of array of talent coming through that academy, and even at left back you've got you got Owen Beck, and there's a 21-year-old, isn't
Luke
there?
Chambers.
Yeah, you got Luke Chambers, and then there's another one as well. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, you got him, and you've also got James Norris as well. So there's an array of an abundance of them. I'd like to see some of them playing the Carabao Cup, probably against Southampton. I think bringing them on in league games. I think the way we're playing at the minute, unless we're about 22-0 up, would I then decide to give them the last 10 minutes of the game? And that's just me. I don't want to disarray the 11 and the squad players at the minute. I think last season was the opportunity. If you're playing in the Europa League the way we were last season, it gave more of the youngsters and more of an opportunity to do that. Get them out on loan. I know Owen Beck's been out on loan quite a lot. Give them the game time. Yeah. So giving them the game time and monitoring that game time is important, because then that will have a big say come say January if Owen does come in. But that's down to Costas and Robbo for that to change, for those youngsters to be brought back, because then there is an issue. I agree with Kings. It'll probably be summertime before we start seeing any kind of movement, if we are going to do anything. But for me, I'd be crying out for Ainori all the time, and hope he gets relegated. So the release clause goes a little bit smaller than what the Wolves would be expecting. But no, that's who I'd bring in myself. Don't get me wrong. There's others that I'd like to bring in. Bastoni, I'd love to bring in, because then it gives Slot then the opportunity to play with three centre backs at the back and play a fairly similar style of when he was a Feyenoord. Am I right, or am I wrong with that, or am I getting mixed up with another team? But it gives him an opportunity. Bastoni for me would be one of the most, and that's down to Charlie as well, who gave me that one. But he's been talking about him since last season. But I'd bring him in. He's a left back as well. You can play centre back as well. Quality, cost abundance of money, but that's if the pot was endless and FSG came out to me and went, "God, you give us our left back, Kev," but it'll never happen. So, but for me, Ainori, young enough, versatile enough, and could get up there. So for me, that's who I'd go with. But go around the houses with that one.
I completely agree with Ainori. I think he does, like the comments say, he can be a bit. Whoa! I didn't know Van Dijk's face pops up on that. That's class. Yeah, like he can be a bit suspect at times defensively, but the main asset that Slot seems to have won in his fullbacks is creativity. And I'd argue at the moment, I think Simicast's delivery has been better than Robertson's now. I'd argue it is better, especially at set pieces. Like, he's class at set pieces, Costas Simicast. So maybe that's something that Slot will look at. Maybe he is going to be proactive on the left back position sooner than we think. I'd love Owen Beck to come through. Jimmy says we need a chart today. Jones or Bert's numbers yesterday. I can do that towards the end. I will do that towards the end. But I know that Curtis Jones...
It's encouraging him, though, isn't it? It's encouraging you.
It's encouraging me. And you know what? I absolutely love screen sharing. And there's research I'm doing for a video on my channel that's going up in like 2 days or something. And Curtis Jones won 4 of his 5 duels yesterday. Only 1 spot behind Gravenberch, who won the most of any Liverpool player, because he won 5 of 5. So Jones yesterday in comparison to Gravenberch. They were very close, but yeah, we'll do that towards the end. Stop feeding my addiction to this. Costas is also 2-footed. Lou Robbo only one. Absolutely, completely agree. That is something big. And we touched on earlier on how the number 6 role or the desire to bring in the number 6 has certainly dropped in comparison to other positions, because we've seen Jones, Gravenberch, Endo still knocking around, Tyler Morton. Like, there's all these players there who are filling a role, so to speak, and it's probably the position on the pitch where I'd argue we've looked strongest at points in certain games, like Bournemouth being a good example, Chelsea. But that doesn't mean that we aren't being linked to every number 6 under the sun. If your 12-year-old plays for Plymouth's youth academy, he's probably linked to us at this point. But Tchouameni, Real Madrid midfielder, of course, linked to him 1,000 times. Blah, 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 blah. Also, Badge Stitches to come back as well. Thank you, Jay Muse. But Tchouameni has had his price tag set. Now, according to multiple reports, it's valued at around 60 million euros, which I think equates to about 54 million pounds, around about that mark. If I'm right, I'm probably wrong, but yeah, something like that. So, to be honest, it's round about the same price that Tchouameni was being touted. Now, when I did the stream last week, everyone in that discussion seemed to be very not interested. Don't want Tchouameni. He's not the player he once was. But I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts. And Kings, I'll go to you first, because Tchouameni he's still only 24 years old. Statistically, he was excellent over the past 365 days. And in a defensive aspect, he's actually got higher stats compared to Tchouameni. It's just the passing which lets him down. Now, in this slot system, Kings, which player fits better, Tchouameni with his passing ability, or Tchouameni, who's a bit more of a defensive-minded player? Who makes the most sense to go for?
Yeah, thanks for that.
What? I can
I'm
pass
not
it
sure,
over,
to be
it's fine.
honest.
I'll answer it if you want, Kings, and then you
Yeah. You go for it, Kev.
Right. And the issue you've got with this is that you've got 2 players at the different streams. You've got one who's very progressive with the ball, and then you've got another one who's very stereotypical what we want, of what some people want. And I think the argument is, I think it'll be 50-50 as to who people will want, because Tchouameni offers you more, but Tchouameni will give you the Fabinho kind of style of player plus a Vieira style of, just being strong, forceful, has the opportunity to move forward. If you look at both players, Tchouameni is probably the most progressive out of both of them. Tchouameni is probably your standout number 6, just a big brute, 6'2". The conversion would be about just under 50 million. It'll be 49,959,000 on the current exchange rate if you were to buy him. But I've said this all the time. I think 2 years ago I would have been all over Tchouameni, without a doubt, within a heartbeat, and I think many would be. But I think the way we're moving forward now, and what Slot wants from his number 6, and I've said it before, he wants the physicality of a 6, but the creative mindset and the engine of an 8 and a 10, and that is something very rare that you'll find. And that's where I think Tchouameni overtakes Tchouameni for me, because he provides you with that kind of Rodgy style of play, but not as big and as forceful, but also as the creativeness to move and turn with the ball, rather than stick with a dominant number 6 who doesn't have that in his actual locker. I'm not saying Tchouameni doesn't, but Tchouameni's more creative and on the front foot than what you can go on.
Just to sort of, because I am going to get to screen share now, and I'm very excited, just to sort of give a counteract to what you're saying, because you make the good point there, and I think I did a minute ago, but I've said it wrong. So you touched on the fact that Tchouameni is the better passer of the ball, but in actuality, stats-wise this season, so it's going to be a bit of a sort of trying to explain each bit, but of the two, Tchouameni has completed pretty much the same amount of passes as Zubimendi with less taken. He's got a better short pass completion rate, a better medium pass completion rate, a better long pass completion rate, and he actually in certain matches has a higher XG XA in terms of like expected assists. So yes, you are right in that regard that Zubimendi maybe moves it better, but stats-wise over the past 365 days in the same league, Tchouameni's actually beaten Zubimendi, so does that factor into anything with regard?
Well, how many minutes has Zubimendi played compared to Tchouameni? Because I think Zubimendi's played more minutes, especially this season, than what Tchouameni has. I think Tchouameni's only played 4 games this season. I may be wrong with that.
So over the past 365 days, Tchouameni has played 2,629 minutes. Over the past 365 days, Zubimendi has played 3,333 minutes. So he has played a couple games more than Tchouameni in that regard. So you are right with that.
So if you're looking at that for me, even still, for me, I'd go for the Zubimendi myself personally, but I know that there'll be. But this is where the argument comes in, and it's a good debate because everyone's opinion will be different, and I do think you've got one that you'll have a lot who will go for Tchouameni, and then you'll have others that will like what Zubimendi can bring to the outfit. I just think at the minute, I would rather go with the Zubimendi. I don't know if you agree with that or whether a Tchouameni would fit in far better. I think it's more of a it's like that security blanket. If you have a Tchouameni in there, he's 6'2". He's a CDM, and everyone then goes, "Oh, we found our 6." I don't think our 6 needs to be that high. I used to think that. I want the technicality. I want us to be able to turn the ball over and move quickly and create and assist better than what we are doing. And if we can find someone who can do that, then that's great. And then that frees McAllister to play in a far forward role, and I would like to see him in more of a number 10 role or even as a number 8, rather than relying on him at times to play in that number 6, which he can do. But I'd rather have someone who can do it out and out. But for me, it'll be Zubimendi over Tchouameni. Yeah, that's where I am with it. Not bothered.
I'm glad. I'm so glad you tried to unpick that first.
I just got decimated by stats by Luke. You know what I mean? So there you go.
I
think
I was just playing devil's advocate.
The problem is obviously we've been in for Zubimendi and he stayed where he was. And it's like, are they going to go back for him? So is that even a conversation to have? Are we going to go back for him? I'm not sure. Tchouameni, I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, I know there was rumours before he went to Madrid, or whatever. It was kind of like we could have maybe. And I haven't seen these reports at that kind of price. So if that is what they're saying, I think that's an unbelievable price for him, to be fair. It's not astronomically out of reach, is it? And he's only 24, as Jamie said in the chat. He's only 24, so he has time to still build and change his game even more. It's like, as we say, like mid-20s to 30 is coming to your peak. So if they got him at 24, then he's still going to hit his peak potentially. So could coming to Liverpool mold him just enough that he becomes even better in that given position. The difference, funny enough, as Kev said, if I had the choice of the two, I would edge for Zubimendi because I think he has the flair with the passing personally, and I think that would suit slot, slow build up, spray the ball around, get it to where you need to be. Where, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, obviously, where I think Tchouameni is more grit. He's a big lad, and he'll just stop the ball. I'm not saying he can't pass. Of course he can. But I just think he's more of like, you're going to hit the brick wall, and then we'll turn the ball over and start again, where I think maybe even somebody else would win the ball, and then Zubimendi would spray it around. I'm not sure how it would work. If I had the choice, I'd take him, but I wouldn't cry if we had the other. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's one of them, I suppose. They're both top players. You don't play for Real Madrid and then just go all of a sudden, well, like we're saying about Andy Robertson, you fall off a cliff after, he's only 24. It's not going to happen. He'll go somewhere, if it's not Liverpool, and he'll probably still have a fantastic career because he's got time to mature and learn yet. Like I say, if that price is to be believed, I picked up on something at the very beginning where you said they're going to speak to his entourage, and that's what makes me laugh now. It's not, it used to be like speak to the agent or his mum or dad even years ago, but now it's speak to the entourage. Can they come and play for our club? It's madness.
I'll show the tweet because it was on the Transfer Room Twitter, and it's I'll show both of them just to sort of play the devil's advocate. I keep forgetting I need to remove the overlay, but yeah. So this is reported by Sasha Tavolieri. Sorry, Sasha. Already interested in Tchouameni profile when he played for Monaco in the summer of 2022. Liverpool Football Club have been in contact with his professional entourage in recent days to discuss the possibility of a transfer. And then coming from Saka again, if Real Madrid were to sell him, they want around 60 million euros. That's the big where this price tag's coming from. And, it's such a good scenario to be in where you're saying, Tchouameni or Zubamendi, when you go back to 2014 and it was Ricky Lambert or Barini. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, do you want filet mignon now or a tomahawk? Like, it's not a bad position to be in. And Tchouameni for me is he's a very talented player. You don't go to Real Madrid for nothing, but he feels more like a Klopp player, whereas Zubamendi feels more like a slot player. And I think you are both right in the sense of Tchouameni might be plan B. And if we get plan B, then absolutely fine. But the main target is Zubamendi, and he does feel very much like a slot thing. Apparently, there's breaking news. Real internally feel it's mission almost impossible to sign Trent Alexander-Arnold in January. Liverpool are still discussing with Trent. So I haven't seen anything of it. If people, it's from Fabrizio Romano deal, and they're pushing to keep him at the club. Is this a smokescreen? To be honest, I'm not hearing any developments that we didn't already know with regards to that. That just sounds like the same thing we've been hearing for months, that Madrid want Trent and Liverpool are talking about a new contract.
Do you know why I see that from Fabrizio? I see that as someone who needs money for Christmas nights out and for Christmas presents.
I wish it was that easy.
Clickbait. Do you know what I mean? That's why I see it. It's nothing. It provides no substance whatsoever. It's not unbreaking.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's keeping him relevant.
Exactly, and it's just keeping. It's just keeping this story ongoing, and the episode continues. And we're in season 5, episode 16 at the minute with this drama, and I'm losing. It doesn't bother me either way now. I'm getting to the point where his performances over the last couple of weeks have been lacking at times, and I'm sad to say I'd be happy to let him go. He's got these ideas of winning the Ballon d'Or. Cannavaro was the last person to win the Ballon d'Or, who was a centre half and was probably one of the best in the world. Stick to being exactly what you are, which is a left back, or decide what your identity is, because he is having an identity crisis. He wants to play midfield. He doesn't want to play right back. His best position for me is right back. He's defending slightly better, but there are individual errors coming with him this season. And in the last few weeks, he's got that kind of Real Madrid arrogance of, well, I'm on the pitch, so I have about 15 minutes to pass a ball, and it doesn't do it. And then he uses his one brain cell to pass it to Curtis Jones yesterday, and cocks that up and it goes out and gives it away. It gets beyond me, and I am with, if he wants to go, just be big enough and come out and tell us. Stop all this teasing like you have been doing, going, oh well, I've always wanted to be captain. Yeah, big deal. At the end of the day, it's a job for them, and I think because we're addicted to the club and we are loyal, we expect loyalty from the players, which is not going to be the case, sadly. And as Roy Keane says, if you want loyalty, buy a puppy. It's getting beyond the joke, and I just hate this episode and saga continuing and ongoing. And it's and Fabinho's just looking for his Christmas bonuses to come a little bit earlier than usual. So it's just getting annoying now, and you're hearing it around by where I sit, and a lot of people are just are coming around the idea that he is going to go, and if he does go, I couldn't care less. I think we've got a better right back, defending wise, in Conor Bradley. I'd like to see him have more of an opportunity, especially the way his performances are at the minute. He's just stinking the gaffer at times. So
yeah, you push the game.
No, you haven't. Jesus. No. You haven't. Yeah, honestly, it's just with Trent and how good he is. It is getting a bit of it's
getting boring.
Forced down everyone's throats. It's far too much, and it dilutes what's happening. Don't get me wrong. We all want him to stay, but it's getting to the point now where you're sick and tired of saying that all the time, that you actually go the other way to some extent. So apologies for that, but I just thought that's it. So more than to one penny's worth out there.
Yeah. No, to be fair, Kev, I think you bang on. That is the thing. There's apathy coming in because just people are just like, do you know what? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And it happened years ago when I think, especially as fans who, and I'm going to say this nicely, Kev, older generation, over time you get to a point where you go, I love that player, he's a hero kind of thing, whether it's Dalglish or Gerrard or etc. And then you get to a certain point and you just realize, like you said, it's just a job. It's not the same as it used to be. Fans put everything into their club because it's their club and they'll stick with them through thick and thin. And I think the players now are so different. It's just they get paid so much money, and they don't even. I don't care if they're from the city, wherever they play, whether they're from Manchester or from Liverpool, or whichever. If they play for their so-called home club, everyone assumes they're going to have the same loyalty and intensity and everything else that they have for their team. And a lot of players don't. They just see it as a job. They might come out and say the right things at the beginning when they're younger, going, I've always wanted to wear the shirt, be the captain, etc. But as they progress through their career, they just look at it and go, well, yeah, I could play for Real Madrid or Barcelona or Inter Milan or whoever it is. And I think now there was shock years ago when Michael Owen and Steve McManaman run their contracts down and they left because it didn't happen that much. But it's quite often it happens now. Some of these top players just leave and go, well, I'm moving on because that's what I want to do. So it isn't such a big surprise if it happens anymore. And yeah, to be fair, the same as Kev. If it happens, well, so be it. We move on. Nobody's bigger than the club. We always said that. So you've just got to get on with it and say, you might suffer for a little bit because he's left and you haven't maybe got the perfect replacement, but you will find somebody else and then, kind of move on with them. So.
Well, the machine's going to keep moving, but like we love the players, but we've lost people in the past. No one in this team was here, bar anyone actually. I think Gomez is the longest. No one was in this team 10 years ago. So it happens. Players come, players go, and it would be sad if he leaves. I don't want him to leave. I don't think anyone particularly wants him to leave because of what he can do on the ball. He's outstanding, but it is getting to this point where it is boring now, and I think a big thing that has played a part in it, just before we go, is back, when McManaman left and when Owen left, or like before then, players run down contracts and leave them. It wasn't as sort of well known around the world when a player would do it. But now with the advent of social media, if a player goes to a foreign league, they want to be world famous for what they do in other leagues. If a player remained at a club his whole career back in the day or left, the whole world didn't know about it per se, whereas now everyone sees what you're doing every minute of every day when you're one of these professionals almost. And the desire to increase your popularity or to increase the people who are noticing you by moving to a Real Madrid or moving to a PSG or moving to a Bayern Munich is irresistible for a lot of these players. And I think Trent, I think you're right, he's got that mentality where he does want to be the biggest thing, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Ronaldo did it for years. So many players want to be the best player they possibly can, but at the same time, you can't be saying, I'm committed to this club, I want to be the captain, but I want to be remembered for winning trophies, but then I want to win the Ballon d'Or. You can't have your cake and eat it, and I feel like at points that's what he's trying to do, to be honest.
But at the same time, though, you're saying you want to win a Ballon d'Or. Last time I looked, there's 11 people on that pitch. and it's a team game,
Yeah.
not an individual game.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, if Van Dijk didn't win the Ballon d'Or, no offense to Trent, because I think he's class, Trent's not winning it. And that's not a dig, but, it's just the harsh fact of life. You have to be the best of the best. And unfortunately, Trent is one of the best of the best right backs, but there's still this notion that he can't defend. And no one who has people say, no one's saying Van Dijk couldn't defend when he almost won it. No one was saying Michael Owen misses goals. He's not too good. No one was saying that Messi wasn't the greatest of all time when he won it. If anyone is noticing flaws in your game, you're not winning the Ballon d'Or. And I think it's just as simple as that. And we are going to shoot, because that actually timed us perfectly to the hour. I want to thank Kev and Kings for coming on. That was one of the easiest chats I think I've ever had since being here. So
I enjoyed
thank
that,
you guys for that. It was great. Great panel as usual, says Jay Muse. I wasn't just saying that myself. Cheers, Lee, and the great panel as usual, Kev and Kings. Cheers for the welcome distractions. They stay positive. You'll never walk alone. If you are new, please make sure to click like and subscribe. And if you want to see more discussion of the Liverpool Leverkusen thing, sorry, Steve, I am going to plug myself a little bit here. Come over to my channel. I'm doing a live stream with Tom Little in about 10 minutes or so, and we're going to go into detail on the Liverpool Leverkusen game for about half an hour. Get involved with your comments. Thank you, King and Kevs, again for being involved. And we'll see you all tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. for the next stream.